Perfect, perfect. All right. So what can we share? Okay, let's just continue. Um, Viewing it from the front, this has been put into the center with the model designer, as we always do. We have, what I've done is I've passed this one through into the working model and the crown. I don't know if the crown is yet. No, that crown is a tooth library. I'm going to remesh it. So this is very, very important that we put this into the collections. But I think this is very self-explanatory. We've got these collections so that we can hide and we can select during the whole process. So I don't think there's any questions about this
Marco, I've got a
unless you.
question here. I've got a question. I don't want to ambush you or anything. What if we've got upper and lower working models?
Yeah, then you put them both in the working model
Okay.
collection.
Okay. All
Yeah.
good.
Okay. Although, or you can finish one and then put that into the antagonist collection.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. So if
can I ask something? What
yes.
if we make crowns in two drawers, an upper and lower crown?
Yeah, so we just put them both in the working model collection. Because later on in the menu, it actually subdivides upper and lower. So
Okay.
for this section, they're all combined. But as we survey, it will then separate, goes on two different ways. The upper goes into a collection and the lower goes into a different collection. Okay. Okay, so then we've got the section scans. So this is, we use that because sometimes, like if we have teeth connected like veneers or something, and we would like to draw the margin all the way around and keep everything nice and separate, we would then use this section here where we just split the scan up into pieces. It's not always necessary, but it's a good idea if we want to actually see all the way around a crown.
So,
So
Marco, if you've got now, you've got an open scan, but what if you've got solid working models, from the model designer? You just
well,
keep on sectioning it.
you don't, well, you don't really need to section it at all. It's just a convenience thing. I mean, if you've got like a full scan, for example, you can just go and cut your surfaces, and then um, we can still continue in that way. But of course, if you've got a if you've got a premolar on the one side and the canine on the other side, like our default file, so you're making a crown, you can draw the margin around. But when it comes to, say, doing the contacts, for example, or no, not the context. The context is a separate model altogether. But it's just a matter of individualizing your work,
So it
if that
just
makes
makes
any
it
sense.
convenient, but it's not a must to use that. It wouldn't affect the coding too much.
No, but like for example, if you've got veneers and the margins are very close to each other,
Yeah.
yeah. So when you're drawing the margin on the one side and then the other side, it makes more sense having them individual so you can actually plan exactly where your margin goes onto that veneer. If that
It's like
me
it's like when you're doing a cross section for something because you want to access the object from the one side. Yeah. I see the point.
Yeah. So I mean, if you guys haven't used this, we can quickly go through it. But I think it's quite self-explanatory, this
Yeah.
this whole thing.
Mm.
Okay. Oh, all right. So, well, actually, maybe we should just cover that, just to be on the safe side. Okay. So I'll just bring in our default file. So that's a model designer samples upper. Okay. Okay. So here we're going to throw this into the working model collection. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go shift right click, and we're going to then create a vertex. Oh, sorry, I've got to select the model that's there. Um, okay, G and then E to extrude. So we can, I should have made sure that I've got a good visual of the actual where I'm cutting through. Okay, so that's also quite important.
So you're just tilting the scene slightly so that you can get
Yeah,
into the area. Okay.
so I'm using Shift D and then E to extrude like that. So I'm only going to cut this section here. So we're going to then make a cutting tool. So this is exactly like our vertex cutting tool. So it splits it. Wolfgang, you told me at 120 micron because we want to maybe be able to fit these into this uh, uh, model base that Wolfgang designed. So okay, so we're going to section the scan, and that brings us to the face normals orientation, because sometimes it gets flipped for some reason. If it does, then we can just click on that and flip it there or back. Okay, so then we just uncheck it, and then we can, from here on, we can then draw our surface. So, so a good explanation of all of this. So if we take this and we start drawing our surface, you can see how it is separated from the rest of it. Okay. So let's just go all the way. And then to demonstrate on the other one, we haven't separate. So you guys can have a good look and see the difference of this procedure. So we're going to create upper surface. Okay, so that's one done. So if we do it here where it hasn't been separated, so well, we can quickly see what the difference is. Can you see? So you can imagine if we got thin veneers that are almost touching each other, it just it's not mandatory, but I mean I can see it from the top here, but it can help, okay,
Okay.
to separate the scan.
It's
Why
not
not
mandatory,
using
but it's
Alt
convenient. I can see.
Yeah, so here we're going to then click on create upper surface. So that's basically the difference between this.
Okay.
Okay, so
why not using Alt B?
Alt B. Well, that's a good question as well. But throughout the entire procedure, sometimes what happens is it does separate these green ones we call segments. So it does separate the segments into individual things, so it does make it better. There's also another thing is um, during the procedure later on, when we're actually generating the crown or we making a margin, for example, we're putting a little margin on the abutment, it's like shrink wraps towards the die section. So it does help in the procedure along the way.
Okay.
So yeah,
So it
okay.
helps with the direction of the margin, did you say? The way it extrudes outwards from the abutment.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
that's about sums it up. All right, so we're going to go there. So we've drawn our surfaces, green for the lower and then the other one for the upper. And then we're going to select them. Now, someone asked me, why do we do the contacts? And I don't know, what did he say? Yeah. Now, we know in a lab, when we make crowns, we need the contacts is a very finicky and tricky thing. And we need them to be exact so that the crown can slot in perfectly. Ultimately, we want a system where we don't need a model. It's a model-free thing. You mill it, you put it in the mouth, and we don't even have to check it on the model. That's my objective. And the only way we can reach that objective is to be very finicky with these contacts. Mm.
That's right, because the contact determines the path of insertion, and even in the lab, we sit there with the paper, the carbon paper, and we grind there. It's a very tedious job getting these contacts right. So I think
Yeah,
it's good that it's following the path of insertion that you choose. But Michael, you had a little bit of a an issue where you can show it in a minute where these two can collide with the actual prep. So when the contact is overhanging the prep from a visual Z axis, it can actually cause problems. But you fixed that, didn't
yeah,
you?
but I have fixed it. So what happens behind the scenes, it will make a blocked out model. And now this blocked out model is a one model. It's one mesh. So it does cut it at the bottom and then splits it up into 3 different blocked out dies. The only problem we've had is that when it is very close here, or when it actually indeed overlaps, just say you've got a prep. Sometimes we have this situation. I've been in this situation a lot where the margin is, the crown is the tooth is wider at the base than at the contacts. So we end up with an issue like that, and the other um, crown is also like that. So that was a bit of a challenge yesterday, but I think I've got it all sorted now, and it makes 3 separate block art models. So that's quite good. So here we're
But I,
surveying.
I,
Yeah,
you also, I like what you have in terms of being able to um, draw the width of the contact. You know, like
yeah,
I use ExoCAD, and when we execute the proximal cut,
yes,
sometimes you have that undercut, but with this blender, I guess
yeah,
you can draw your own contact, so you don't bring that all the way down to the undercut. That's another way that I guess I can envision that we can
yeah.
avoid that undercut. Yeah,
That's a good idea. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and I
So
think
yeah,
that's great that you allow us to do that. Yeah,
yes, I think user input is critical here, so we can get everything. I'm not familiar with Exocad or 3Shape or Blue Sky or Dental. I've never used any of them,
yeah.
so it's like working from the bottom upwards, So
No,
yeah,
no, no. I think it's great because uh, sometimes like ease of automation doesn't
yeah.
allow you to customize like the way you have it. I think that's great. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, perfect, perfect. All right, so I've put in a few fail safes. If you click on the wrong button here, it just won't work. So this is quite good. So users can't get this thing wrong. Okay. So we're going to block out the lower, and this takes a little bit of time to think because there's like 2,000 lines or something it's got to go through to do this. Um, we'll
This is where
just wait.
Andreas's computer will come in very handy.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you put it on a survey that we can all tap into it? Yeah. Okay, so we finish with this. I don't think this needs further explanation. We've got a few hide buttons here. Actually, we don't really need them. No, we do need them because if we're surveying now the upper side, the upper crowns, we need to be able to hide certain things. And you'll see when you're doing the upper crown how this is actually coming quite useful. So, okay, the next one is this one is with the drill diameter. Now, Blender does calculate thin areas, and you can see that with very spiky preps. I've actually purposefully made preps that are very, very thin and spiky, and it finds those areas very, very well. Sometimes it confuses me a little bit because it shows other areas there that don't really look thin. But I think there's a bit of an explanation there. So anyway, so we are here now. I'm going to put, Lorenzo said his drill is 1 millimeter. He always puts a little bit more in there. So maybe 1.1 or 1.2. I don't quite know how this works with milling machine.
0.1 more is good enough for milling. Is
It,
just is meant to just have enough room to let the drilling, the milling tool move around without having any
okay.
impact
Did you say,
on the actual surface.
I didn't hear you. Did you say 1 or 1.1 or what did you say there?
0.1 more than the diameter of
Ah,
the tool is good enough.
okay, so
Okay.
1.1. I didn't know that you were joining us, so it's
Yeah.
good to hear your voice. It's good. All right, so we're going to then expose that, and so I would assume Blender finds a path between this face and this face being um, in that certain range. Okay,
Can you
so
take a
what I
measure,
will,
Michael? Just for
um,
interest.
I have, but
Okay.
like here for this one here, for example, I don't quite know what, I don't quite know why it detects that one as a thin area. Maybe it's between the die, between the margin and that. I'm not entirely sure
Okay,
why that
because it
does that.
actually looks like it's dipping down a little bit on the very distal. So maybe it's picked up. But look,
So I have,
typically in a lab situation, those sharp ridges, I would have taken wax or something and just run a bit over, or composite.
what when we're preparing dyes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, that's 100% correct, because if this was a dye in the lab, I would probably block it out. I would definitely block it out. Do you know what I mean? I would take wax or whatever and I'll block out certain areas. So, I mean, this isn't 100% automatic thing that we have here, which, well, I don't know how else to do it.
Mm.
Anyway, okay, so we can add or subtract, and we're going to then block it out. Okay, so this brings in a mesh structure, and we're going to accept that. Okay. All right, so this is like, yeah, as you said, Wolfgang, we've blocked it out, like, like we would do in the lab, but I
So
don't know.
just to get you right, Michael, that 1.1 is a measure on the upper surface, isn't it? So that the burr can actually go all the way in there.
Yeah, look, so if I take a cross section, so let's take a cross section of this over here, and then I look at it here, from here to there would give you a measurement. I think it should be close to 1.1. Yeah, it's even a little bit more. Maybe not. It depends on my where I've put this thing. So you can see. So we've got a
Okay, so there
yeah.
was a question. Stay there. We had a question about the 4-axis milling machine. So 4-axis, of course, it can't get into the curvature of this cavity. It would only allow Z-axis entry into the cavity, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I would assume that undercut areas like this, it wouldn't reach.
Hmm.
It wouldn't reach, but surely the burr would still, it would still go up here. Look, I don't, I'm not 100% sure there, but of course it wouldn't be able to go here. Have you got any experience on this, Lorenzo? Are you there?
Yep,
Is it?
yep. I have always used 5-axis milling machine, so I don't know exactly how to avoid any kind of problem like this on 4-axis. By the way, I think that by a good survey of undercuts, we should avoid the most of big problems.
Mm.
I think so. I think so too. I think so. Okay, so Wolf, can you ask me the question, why have we got this context thing in the margin section? And this is because we have to, behind the scenes with the scripting, we need to separate the abutments from the contact areas to eliminate them from further things, because when we're generating the crown and this is too close, then it can create problems. So I'll just show you in the background what's happening. So in the outliner window, when we did survey, we behind the scenes we made these tools. Okay, so if ever they pop up, just they shouldn't any more, because I've got these fail-safe things, but maybe they do. I don't know if something goes wrong. But these are like locator tools. So when you have a crown on top here, for example, so let me just draw like a crown here on top from the tooth library here, for example, it would then detect this to be, at the moment, they're all one unit. So it will separate out this one as its own unit, its own locator, and then it'll then be able to select this one and this one and all of the whole assembly that goes with it. So this is why we're trying to separate out the contacts from there to eliminate them from the actual procedure.
Okay,
I don't know if that,
way too much information.
yeah, but if that ever pops up, these are the locator
Actually, when
tools.
when yesterday it bugged me with the creation of contact points of a survey.
Yeah,
Um, that red thing popped up, and I really didn't know what that was.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That's
good to know.
that's
Okay.
that's right. So, and uh, that's simply because um, these were joined. These here were joined. The block out was joined, and it didn't separate out that red locator as its own unit. So the code was stopped at that point. But I don't think that's going to happen again because I've
Okay.
sorted that out. Okay, so let's go and do this. So we're going to take the contacts and we're just going to name them at this stage. Okay, you can't name the wrong one. We're going to name the lower one. Okay. All right, so that's eliminated that out of the whole procedure. So I'm going to take this one and we're going to add support margin. Now you mentioned that maybe we should have like an increment where we can put more and more and more, or less and less and less. I think that's
Yeah.
quite a good one. I've got a toggle here. I don't know how useful that is. Toggle where you can actually scale it outwards or inwards. So
The
I don't
difference
know
is
how.
by scaling is we have IO-meter way to do it, but by having a button like this one,
Yeah, yeah.
which you can add a support margin of exactly 0.1 or 50 microns, could
Yeah,
be fair enough.
It's a good point
that's good.
because,
So
on a
then we can
digital, you
play with.
can't really say, it's very hard to say how far you've pulled it out, but incremental, it's very
Mm,
accurate that way. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so now this margin, again behind the scenes is a bit of it's quite complicated, because if you've got an inlay, for example, like the silly little inlays, it's this margin has to shrink wrap on the actual die, because we can't just extend it outwards because it'll cut into the die. So it's quite there's quite a bit behind it, but so yeah.
But if
All right.
you set this thing on an onlay or inlay design um, should be think by the skill of the user. Obviously, a user which is designing an only will never ever do a margin too thick, I think. So it's a problem, but it is not a problem at all to me.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So it does make its margin on the inlay, which seems to work okay. All
Yeah.
right, so this is done. We can delete the margin as well if we want to, and we can go back to a different margin if we want to. All right, so the next thing is we're going to make our spacer, which we've discussed as well. So we can either go the auto spacer and zone, which takes default values, or we're going to add a spacer. Now this is this main spacer, or it's also an engineering offset. It depends how you want to look at it as well, you know. So, um, so in this one, we can set the thickness of it, spacer thickness, and we can set, this is supposed to be called margin. What did we say, Wolfgang? Margin distance or something.
Yeah, something like
So,
that.
so we can then set how far away we're going to go to the margin. You can't go 0 because the thing disappears, okay? We can go 0.01, which is 10 microns, which is very, very close. Note that the edges are a bit ragged, and that because it takes on the faces from underneath, okay, from our cutout surface. But that will get smoothed out. So as we're going along, I've got the default set at 1 millimeter. I don't know what we should have as a default. How far do you
One
reckon that?
millimeter
1 millimeter, do you think?
is good. Is good. 1 millimeter is good.
Okay, so then the thickness of it,
Michael, I think the question was if you're milling PMMA, they wanted to have more, take the cement spacer closer to the margin, even, yeah, so that you get more cement,
yeah, well,
space.
we can take it. We can take it more to the edge. All right, so this is,
I was thinking another.
yeah,
Excuse me, Mike.
yeah.
I already I have already write it on the survey module that Wolf put it on the group. But I was thinking that you mentioned about that the zero gap space between cement gap and the margin is preset on 100 microns, correct?
Yes.
What if we
Yeah,
have another slider which we
yeah.
can use to increase or decrease that gap? That could lead us to another way to have a more passive or more retentive crown on that intimate contact with the margin.
Okay, okay. So, well, what I've got is we can set this gap, okay, up top here with the slider. So 0 point whatever. So I don't know quite whether this is what you're meaning. So we've got quite a good system of getting it close to the margin. So in cross section, you can see, and the
Okay. Nice.
okay. So
I
so
was
we
saying another.
yeah. Okay, sorry.
I was
You were
saying
saying?
another thing. You mentioned that between margin and the blue abutments itself, there
Yes.
is 100 microns. Is correct?
Yeah. Well, it's 100 microns inside and outside. So this is now 50 microns. So if I had to take a measure, it's 100 microns from here to there. So the if we want a default
Okay.
of
Okay. No. Okay.
so if we want a default of 100 microns, it should be actually 0.2, but I feel that it's just too, I feel that's just too big. I may be wrong. So look, it's 0.1 that way, and it's then would be 0.1 this way. So would you think 100 micron is not too big?
I just misunderstood what that 100 microns were mentioned for. So okay,
Oh,
I probably rethink on what I've said, and
yeah,
maybe we will see again.
but you're quite right, because other people were also saying 100 micron. But when I look at
Okay,
it from a digital scale,
um,
it looks a bit big to me. But I may be wrong. I may be wrong. I don't know.
100,
I don't know.
microns are good enough. 100 microns are good enough because the actual spacing you will have will be something like 50 microns. Indeed, it depends on which material you will use for any restoration, and obviously on which cement will be used for that restoration. For example, if I do a zirconia restoration and it will be cemented with a dual composite cement,
Yes,
I
yes.
will use 50 microns gap cement. But if doctor will use glass ionomeric cement, I obviously will need more room for the cement gap.
Okay.
By talking about of engineering fitting,
Yeah.
I previously mentioned about an X and Y
Scale. Mm,
scale. Yeah. And
yeah.
it could be fair enough to have, because depending on which material you will mill, you need more or less gap between actually the crown you're the die.
Okay. So you don't think a die spacer which goes very close to the margin would do the trick for
It
Michael,
an
does the
engine?
trick. It
Yeah.
does the trick, but you will have more, and how is it called? Probably you will have more problems on actually have a nice grip of the milling of the milled restoration on the die. So
Okay.
by having a scaling factor, you will be more accurate on this,
Mm,
because you will have a gap which is 50 microns, and then you will have another gap on X and Y
yeah.
face,
Yeah.
where you can be more more thin. You will add a more thin gap.
Mm,
It's
okay.
like having a differentiation of gap on each area.
Yeah. Michael has a
Yeah.
question. The area that isn't painted red now, so going towards a margin, even if you had to pull the die spacer back a bit, what is the clearance between the crown and the actual surface of the tooth?
Well, that's zero.
That's zero. Okay.
That's zero.
Because that goes
But
onto the
Wolfgang,
surface. Yeah.
yeah, but Wolfgang, the zirconia crowns that we've done in the past, we've never had a problem with that
No,
at
never.
all.
No, we haven't had a problem with that. Hmm.
I
Yes.
am talking about the experience I had on Exocad, and by designing on Exocad, depending on which material I will use, I need more or less gap.
Hmm.
So maybe
Okay.
when we will do that call, I can show you what I mean.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think if we do a scaling factor, we just have to be very cautious about a few things. I'm talking about things like inlays or posts or something, because when we scale it, it's going to go in the opposite direction where we want to scale it. Do you know what I mean? So like a cylindrical
Indeed.
object, cylindrical object is all good because it scales outwards like that. But as soon as you've got an inlay, we have to then scale it inwards. And the other problem I see with that whole system is that if you've got a complex shape like an MOD, for example, like something like that, MOD, and now you're scaling it, you want to scale this on the outside, you want to scale this bigger, but this you want to scale inwards. So this is the problem that I personally see with any scaling factor. Cylindrical shapes, fine. Horseshoe shapes, like if you've got a horseshoe shape like this, big problem, like if you've got a veneer that wraps around. So this side gets scaled outwards. Ah, that's all very nice and sweet. But then this gets scaled out in this way as well, but then it will cut
Indeed,
into the tooth prep. At some
yep.
areas will cut. So I'm a bit hesitant
Indeed,
with
in
this whole
Indeed, in
scaling.
Exocad, you have the scaling factor on X and Y differentiated by the Z
Mm.
only on copings and bridges. But on
Okay,
inlays, binary, you will have only all around gap.
so say for example we've got a bridge. Okay, so let me just go here.
Sure.
So we've got a bridge. We've got one tooth prep here. We've got a pontic here, and we've got another tooth prep here. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to scale it bigger. So it's going to scale bigger here, which is all very nice. It's going to scale bigger here, which is very nice. But what it's going to do, the point of origin in a bridge would be here. So it'll scale outwards in every single direction. So what's going to happen here, it's going to scale this way, okay? And it's going to hit
Yeah.
inside of the tooth prep. Now you say X and Y, but in a 3D space, where is X and Y? Okay, so on a
Indeed.
front on a front crown, like on an anterior crown, this would be the Y axis and this would be the Z axis. But on a bridge or on a posterior crown, that can be completely different. So
We will
where
need
in 3D
a
space
point
is
of
the X
origin
and
for each post. I think
sorry?
we will need a point of origin for each for each
Yes.
post.
So the point of origin is the key of where it's going to scale. And I foresee that as a bit of a problem because in a bridge, the point of origin would be somewhere here. You can't shift the point of origin here in a bridge because if it is here in a bridge, it will scale this way very nice. But all of this is going to be scaling this way. All of that is going to be
Can't we
scaling
have
in.
a point of origin on each on each die
No,
for
you
that
can't
tooth?
because you cannot because if you got a bridge, if it's all one unit, you can't do it like that. But if it's on one crown, which is cylindrical, perfect. If you've got an inlay like an MOD, it's not going to work. If you've got like a post crown, we have to shrink it. A post crown, for example. So you've got the post like this, and then you've got the crown like that. Okay. Now ideally, just say the margin comes around like that. Ideally, this we want to scale outwards, but this we want to scale inwards. It becomes it would become a huge mess. That's my personal opinion about that. But I don't know how else we can do it. But for crowns, easy. I don't think that's a problem at all.
The problem resembles only for crowns because as I mentioned the gap we will on Exocad the gap is added all around on posts on wieners
So there's a default
and
gap set, Michael, for
yeah.
Hexacan.
Okay, I think it would be cool to have. Maybe you can show me on your thing. The one way we can do this, okay, where we can scale everything, is if we have our die, because behind the background scenes, we've got a collection called dies. Okay, so let's grab this die. Okay, so this is the die here. I'll I'll hide everything else if I can. No, I can't. Hold on a second. Um, that's one way of doing it, and then we can scale. We can offset that die, and then when we offset that die, it's going to go in the absolute correct directions, whether it's an inlay or onlay or whatever. So, okay, let's just grab this die
Maybe it's another
here.
good starting point. I mean,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
me, it's good enough. Even like
So here's a die, and we can offset it just like the block art module, and then it will go properly everywhere, whether you've got a post or a bridge or whatever. It will then scale in the exact correct dimensions as a factor of scale, and it'll make the cut on the inside of the crown. I think that could work. That could work.
okay,
Mm.
okay.
Well, that's something you can look into, Michael. Should we
I think so. Yeah.
should we move on to the you've covered the block
Yeah,
art
yeah,
now?
excellent, excellent. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to just make this into our, I'll just go back a few steps. All right, okay, I think I'm a bit far enough back now. I've done so much talking. Maybe I'll just bring in another file. Oh yeah, okay, this is fine, perfect. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to set this to 1 as the default, and we're going to accept that, and it'll smooth the margin down, okay? Because ultimately that's going to be the fitting surface. Add safety zone, I've set that to 0.5 now, okay, as a thickness measure, and then accept. Now the auto does that all automatically, okay?
So you can change that on the slider from 0.5 to any thickness that you like, just to prevent you milling through the crown in a different material.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it
So we're
was
going to
said,
go,
like Emacs, for example, you might want to have it thicker, especially for the molar area.
that's correct.
Mm.
So we're going to view the antagonist. If you've got crowns as an antagonist, and then you would select your model and your crowns to make an offset cutting tool, because what it does, it unifies all the crowns, or it could be tooth library, for example, up top. We don't know what the user's using, so that becomes our cutting tool. So we're making a cutting tool.
I think
Okay.
Lorenzo has a
Yeah.
question.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
I was thinking about it could be nice maybe to have the option to save some space, some cement gaps on a preset list. Maybe I have a preset for zirconia with dual composite cement, which is
Yeah.
different between the one with glass ionomeric cement,
That's a
and
very
is
good. Mm.
oh, it's boring to always manually add those gaps. So maybe by having a preset list, which everyone can modify, can
The
be
problem we have
helpful
with
to me.
modification, I think it's a really good idea. The only thing with modifications is you have to go into the scripting. And if a user makes one little mistake,
Yeah.
it's wrong. So we can have a preset list here, that's no problem. But if you individualize that preset list when you go update module, it's all gone, because it replaces the whole module, and the whole thing is gone, you see. That's a problem with
Okay.
that.
Okay.
But I'm
Okay.
just
Nice.
wondering.
Maybe we can do maybe we can do a preset I already done preset list, which is updated time by time.
Well,
Yeah,
Michael, you
that's
could
good.
add that into the tooltips, you know, a couple of presets, values, or you could
Wolfgang,
add it into the video link button.
unless these buttons call it from a different directory, which the user can modify. But then again, it's scripting, and then something doesn't work anymore, and then you know, we'll spend our lifetime correcting codes because there's a full stop missing. No, we
Yeah.
can't go down that path.
I think
No.
I'll take
Never
note
mind.
of it. I'll take note of it, and then we could have a think about it, how to do this, and if we're going to do
Perhaps
it.
if I can,
Reset this.
if I
Yeah.
can just add something about this
Hey.
type of scripting.
Yes.
Perhaps in the future we can add some fail-safe by doing some preset online for each user, as we can do with the export of guide settings. I think we talked about it earlier.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
You know,
Yeah.
I've begun, working on the transcript, the scripting for the translation using
Yes.
an external file. The idea behind
That's
this is to make export for the guide module a
Yeah.
little bit fancier. And if we can
Yeah.
make this online, we can have a lot of fail-safe online. You know, the user can check some drop-down list or checkbox. We save it on his user account, and when you update, just click on the CFG file or XML file or PY file with his own settings, and after we can import it, and nothing could be damaged by the user. I think I
That's a
agree with
good
you.
idea.
They don't have to script because, as you know, even us, when we script, we do some nice typo, and after we scratch our head for hours. And so, so I think that for the end user, it's not okay. But in the future, when we have time to make all the module nice with all this online function, I think it can be very nice. But for the month, Lorenzo, I think if we get some nice preset, like a drop down with like 10 preset, it's just enough. You will not put 10mm gap. So if you have
That's a
four
good
choice,
That's a good idea.
idea. Yep.
That's a good idea. And the thing is, the user can actually download it and then install it straight, or maybe a zip file, and it'll put it straight into the folder that we need, and then
and
they can
we can
continue.
sell the instructor zip file. You know, you have the special setting of Lorenzo.
That's funny. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. And we can do that same thing with a model designer with a filling material on the inside, for example.
Oh, sure.
You know, so there's quite a lot of things we could have these presets. I hadn't thought about that.
I can
Good
make
idea.
a listing of all the things we could externalize and make a nice externalization. But it will be the same as the translation. But we will speak about that later. Sorry.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to adjust this, the offset of this. 0.1 is the default. You can, if you make it 0.2, it goes bigger. That's just to make sure that the crown is indeed out of byte. Okay, so we're going to apply that. Perfect. Now we've got this thing popping up, and we don't actually need that popping up, do we, Wolfgang?
No,
we
that's what I
no,
said, mentioned.
we don't really need to see it in the when we're using the articulator. We do need it to pop up, but that's articulated, so maybe we can hide this. We don't really need that
I don't
to
think
pop
you
up
need
in
it, Michael.
trans.
No, get rid of it.
But all, you think so? Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's select the restoration. You can do these individually on each restoration, or you can select all of the restorations and do it in one go. Okay. So they'll all cut. The Boolean tools will not fail because they're all separate Boolean cutting tools. Okay. So we're going to set this, and as you see, it's gonna chop off my crown as I'm moving it up and down. Okay. Yeah, all right. So that's sort of self-explanatory, I think. Here we can edit the meshes. This is so that if the margin is like standing far away from the crown, for example, we can actually bring that outwards and get this to the correct level to get a good emergence profile. Okay, let's just do that like that. And yeah, so that's about it. Um, yeah, and then we're going to go back into object mode, but we have to then trim the restoration. Okay, trim it. And if you do, so we Wolfgang, we get rid of this one. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So if there are any green zones, we need to inflate it. And again, Lorenzo, good idea with adding strips. I haven't tried that, but I will give it a try. Here we can even
Is it
take
called
that
layer? Brush layer is on the left.
right.
I can't remember which one is, but that brush is a lifesaver to me.
Okay, we'll test that. So if it's cut into your green zone, we will mark the antagonist. At the moment, it hasn't, but it will actually put a red mark on the antagonist for the dentist then to see where the prep was too thin and that they could then cut the tooth prep at a certain location. Now, the other new thing is we've got click to finish this stage. Now, this is only because this has got to do with the articulator and the actual antagonist is in a different location, and we want to actually put the antagonist back into the correct location, and we want to delete our cutting tool that keeps popping up, this one here. Okay, we're going to click to finish the stage, and that will get rid of that and it'll sort it all out.
So that's a vital, important button to press, actually, Michael?
Well, it is actually, it is. Otherwise, the antagonist is in the wrong collection. And I can't do that automatically because sometimes we're not working with an opposing model. And I'll give it some thought, but for now, I think that's an obvious solution. All right, okay, so here we are, generate crowns. We're going to select our crown, and then we're going to either edit our meshes like we did earlier. And the only reason why I've got that in here again is because you may not have an opposing tooth, an opposing
Occlusion,
antagonist.
yeah.
So, yeah, occlusion. So I've got that here where we can pull out and push in and whatever we need to do. Then we're going to a few fail safes. If we click on the wrong buttons, it's not going to work. The only button that's going to work is this one here. So, okay, let's click that. I'm still a bit nervous because there's like 2,000 lines it has to go through, and you know what happens if it's like, oh, I'm crossing my fingers, you know. So it's like this is where all the magic happens. But yeah, so you know, I haven't established 100% confidence.
Michael,
But
you've done
anyway,
so many crowns already, hey? And so have I. So tested
yeah,
and tested.
yeah. Yeah, but you never know. We have to anticipate what the user's doing, which that's the most difficult thing, you know.
Well, I suppose this is why you've unified the mesh into you've remeshed the initial tooth library so that at this stage down it's going to be working. You know, if you've got a tooth library mesh that's not correct or a bad quality, of course it will fail, won't it?
Well, too true, too true. So, okay, here we've got our mesh structure, which I think it looks quite good. We've got our 0.1 millimeter margin there, which is all good. Of course, we want to, we don't have to smooth it. I think the mesh, because I've looked at some other meshes from other programs and, you know, I don't know, it looks quite good to me, I think. I may be wrong.
I can tell you it's perfect.
Ah, okay, good. But of course, sometimes we do want to smooth these things. We do want to inflate it. Now, there's still a problem on the inflate button. I've got to change that today because it does alter my margin just a little bit. But there is a way to to stop it from doing so. Later on today, I'm going to do that. So if you do use the inflate, just steer away from the margin a little bit. So here we're going to smooth with protection, and what that happens, it's
Excuse me,
actually,
Mike. What if you activate the smooth with protection and then you will pick the inflate button?
it doesn't matter. It both protects the margin and the inside. The only difference is at the moment, what happens is the inflate subdivides instead of collapses the edges.
Okay,
So,
okay.
so I've got to put a code there to make sure it doesn't do it. The other one with the contacts, I think I've changed that already. So if you want to smooth, and you don't have to see that crown, you can basically do this, and it will smooth through the model. Okay. So you don't actually have to see it to smooth it. Okay.
Because this is what I was thinking. Because if you wanted to look, you really have to hide the other components to get to the buccal and mesial side of the crown. I mean, distal and mesial. But you say you can smooth just straight through it.
You just do this, and it smooths straight through it. Okay.
Okay, that's good to know. So we don't
All
have to
right.
unhide the segments.
Absolutely not. So here we'll see the mesh structure is a little bit different now. These are triangles, but we can see it. The smoothing has gone all the way down to the margin. Okay. All right. So based on that, the crown is almost finished, except for the contacts. I mean, here we can see the contact is really not good because it's only contacting on top. Of course, it's intersecting. This is where the whole contact things comes in. And we've left this to probably the last stage, more or less. We want to see the contacts. We're going to click on there, and we want to be able to select the contacts. So we're going to click on that. So the contacts we can do individually. Now behind the scene, what this has done, it's also made another contact cutter. Okay, and we see that later on in the bridge, which is, where is it here? Contact tools. Yeah. Okay, so we use this one in, if we've got crowns next to each other, okay, or we have a midline. To get the midline 100% correct, we will use this one over here. Okay, so we'll do that in stage 2 of the testing. Okay, so just know that behind, when we blocked out all of this, we've made this plane which is parallel to our block out. Okay, so let's just hide that again. Now, and
Michael,
of course,
just one
yes,
second about this midline tool. Can you implement it in the workshop module when we do workshop for the incisional area? Because I just finished one this morning, and at the end I made the final sculpting, and at the
yes,
end my midline was like this. So
okay,
it was not very
yeah.
nice. Just to add this function, and I don't know if it's possible for the workshop module.
I think we can do it, but it won't be parallel to any block out or survey
No,
because
but
we
we can
haven't
make it
surveyed it.
parallel to the mounting table and the
Yeah,
the things we have on the mounting table. I
I
don't know,
think so.
just an idea, but
I,
I
th
would like.
I, th I think that's something we could look into. I think, yeah, it's a good idea. I'll take note. Wolfgang, take note of it. You're very good with your notes. I don't have any notes. All right, so okay, so we've got these pink contacts. We can select them separately or individually. So now this is because I've done that because the dentist may want to have a more gap on the one side because he wants to put a filling there, or there may be something where we don't want the context to be exactly the same or something. I don't know. I just thought about flexibility here. We can do that all in one go, or we can do them separately. So I'm going to select both all in one go. We can do the default, or we can go through the motion. I'll just go through the motion. Select, okay, we're going to make a contact cutter. And then what we're going to do, this is set at 50 microns. If you want loose contact, gosh, you can make this bigger or smaller. Okay, so it depends on you how tight. If your crowns are consistently tight for some reason, then just set this one over here. Okay, I'm going to apply that. Excellent. Then, of course, we want to shape these contacts, because here this contact looks a bit, we want to have it coming up more like this, you know. So I'm going to select that, and we're going to shape the contact for selected. Now, you can't get to the contact, and that's because if we're working with multiple teeth, you want to be able to see the model and the contact on the one side. So, but we can simply hide the segments over here, okay? And then we can shape this contact. Okay, so we're going to go through this. And this is like a bit like a glass plane. We can actually
So
see
the
what we're doing.
protection is still active, Michael.
The protection is active here. And notice that this inflate does not harm the margin. Can you see? Where that's because I've got that special coding in there. Okay, so I can actually view this contact and view the lower segment to see where this, how far I want to bulge this contact out. Okay, so let's have a look at the other side. Okay, of course, we've got a hell of an undercut tooth, and we can't, you know, it's going to cut all the way there, all the way to the bottom here, because the cutter is there. But let's view it anyway. Okay, so we've got it over here. If it goes too close to the margin, please note that you're going to cut off your margin. Okay, so all right, so we can minus this if we want to. So okay, most dentists like these very broad contact areas, you know, to make sure. That's one thing, Wolfgang, you know, when you're doing a tooth prep, when the actual contact design is just as important as the tooth prep, because often in the lab I've experienced that the patient has a food trap, yeah, but the contact hasn't been changed, so we are expected to make a crown like this so that to get rid of the food trap, but the contacts haven't been redesigned. Do you know
It's
what I mean?
ideal just to polish the distal and medial of the adjacent teeth slightly, but of course, you know, you're touching teeth that, you know, might be vulnerable if you, yeah, I don't know. It's
All right,
another
so we're going to
subject.
You
But
can always add something, you know, the dentist could add composite if the contact is like a wall like this, and he hopes that you have a contact point, it's not okay. But you have also you have to think about micro brushing, you know, brushing into the interdontal space. And I like the idea that the guy can, you know, make some space in order for the hygiene to be okay. So I really like this functionality of shaping the contact area. Very nice.
Yeah, that's good. But of course, now we've got a concave contact cut, and we don't like having concavities, do we? We usually want convexities. So here we can see how it's been caved inwards, and of course we need to smooth that down. So we're going to go smooth with protection. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dropper and I'm going to take the sample of the mesh underneath so that we can match that sample of that mesh structure. So here we're going to just make sure that it's not as concave as what we had it beforehand.
Michael, perhaps it's not possible, but just a question. You do some mask protection for the with the vertex group. As we have shaped the contact area, we can also like just draw the contact area and see it, you know, in a colorway. But afterwards, we've got a concave shape of the proximal face. So if we just make the protection but inverse it, so what we have drawn as a contact area, we have to keep it on the contacts, but the rest we have to make it convex. So if we make it if we mask protect it, we cannot alter it. So you just have to, you know, to make a small sculpting around this mask protected contact area. And so it will be very easy to have some convexities, because we like to have convexities against convexities, because concavities against concavities, you say it's just like tooth decay trap. So if we just manage to make a nice contact area, and afterwards, what you are doing next is just trying to avoid the nice thing you have done, I think that it will be quite disturbing for the sculptor, because when you are at the lab or in the clinic, you just do the other thing, we add and we remove. And there, I think it's very hard to make some nice convexities sculpting, even if we take some big tool and, you know, zooming out or making the tool bigger. I have issues making nice convexities. Perhaps it will be the experiment with time, but experience with time, but I don't know.
It's a good point. Good point. Yeah, definitely. Good point.
I'll take it down. I'll write it down. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so look, basically our crown is finished now. Let's unhide this. We can hide the cutters if we want to. And then it's time for export. Exporting is simple. We just click on that. We go to the bottom section and we finish the restoration to the collection. What that does, it brings it to the center. It duplicates this, brings it to the center of Blender, and it puts the point of origin also into the center of the actual crown. That's, I've experienced that if we export this straight away, then the point of origin is completely different when you're trying to nest it, and then you can't rotate it properly. That was my experience. Maybe you've got a different experience, but this is why I've put it in the center of Blender, and then we export it like this as usual, like that. And while it's done that, the coding will also get rid of any non-manifold edges that do exist to make sure that it is sort of printable. Okay. I'll just delete that. All right. So, yeah. So I think that sort of concludes everything. I don't really want to go into anything else. We can cut back. Lorenzo showed you yesterday how we would cut back this crown for layering. Maybe we should just touch on that. It won't take long. So here in the cutback menu, make sure it's selected. We're going to, it crashed yesterday when I hit this button. So I'm going to have to make sure that doesn't do that. We're going to throw that into the collections. It turns color. I may want to change that color as well because I don't like it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select paint. And what that does, it protects the inside as well. So it's impossible to cut it to bring it too close to, so it'll never make a hole in it. Okay, in other words. Okay, so here, and then we're going to just cut back with protection. All right, so good for front teeth. We can cut a window in it. Back in the olden days, we used to carve that with a wax tool, like a lacron, and then we'd put like beads. We'd glue beads on it. Do you remember,
Michael,
Wolfgang?
you say the olden days. This is still probably quite a common technique for composite layering telescopes. I don't know. Maybe Andreas can comment on that. He would know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, all right. So that's it. That's it. Okay, that's it. I think we've discussed a lot of things today. We can see the inside surface.
Can
here.
I ask my last question tonight?
Yeah, of course you can.
I was thinking about how the live stream works when it comes to design on the same time an upper and lower restoration.
Yeah. Oh, you were asking me? You thinking?
Yep.
Asking me, or all right. So we're going to get into that in one of the next phases, upper and lower together. Because the thing is, it works exactly the same, except for when it comes for the antagonist. Okay, so when we do the antagonist and we
point.
do the cutting, occlusal adjustments, we would then most probably duplicate what we have on top to make that into an antagonist. I have tried it already and it works, but it needs a bit of
Okay.
a explanation on how the workflow works with all of that upper and lower together.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
Okay, so
So
I
uh,
think we got it
I
right.
think in the initial release of the beta module, there have been changes now, and I think we're quite steady now, except that color change that you were talking about.
Which color change
It turned
did you say?
pink.
The pink.
Ah, okay, yeah. All right, that's all good.
So just
Anyway,
just update a new menu, and we should be okay then. Yeah.
but that's not even in the stage that we are doing at the moment. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So Michael, you still going to do the single crown by using the articulator module, weren't you? Because that's still
Yes, I'm
stage
going to.
one. We thought
Yeah, I'm going to
that's a
do.
good inclusion to stage one.
I'm going to do that because the articulator is very important, so that we can get all the movements excursive and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
Excellent.
excellent.
Yeah, are there any questions still? Do you need more learning files or more scan models or anything like that?
I need the learning files for the workshop module.
We've moved
Because, you know,
on.
I need the face scan, you know. I have 4 video and after I have finished. Just give
I'll
me
send
this
you.
one after I stop harassing you.
I'll send you a face scan today.
I
It's
don't
all
have
good.
the face scan, you know. Just
It's
wondering,
okay.
I want to finish the workshop. It's been a long time doing
Okay,
this one.
that's all good.
And I have my meeting with, you know, with the industrial guy about the mouse guard. It will be on Wednesday. At the beginning, I was
Okay.
willing to show you my my PowerPoint. I don't know if you have some times to see the beginning of it, but um, in fact, I will just present Blenderfordental because this industrial guy is a I don't know how I have this meeting, but he's like the guy who give money for the other guy I help in doing his thesis. And it's a huge company, and they do like printing arteries or things like that. So very huge biomedical things. And they are interested, I don't know why, with the mouse guard for the patient and the sportsman. So we have this thesis working with the printing of mouse guard. And I have to show him on Wednesday. I go into with my young student. I go into the lab, so I have to present it what we are doing with Blenderfordental. So with your I don't know, with your fulfillment, I will try to just to showcase what you can do with Blenderfordental and what we can hope to do for mouse guard or other things. Because as you spoke earlier about this idea of, you know, making some industrial joint venture with Blender, perhaps it could help. So
Excellent.
I will give you the end of it on Wednesday. I don't know what
Yeah.
to attend for this meeting because I never did such meeting. I think I will try making a nice improvisation, but if you want, I can show you just some slide just like 1 second, okay? And after you can all go to sleep.
Okay.
Just show you my screen. So it's the beginning, but I'm doing a lot of different things today. So just showing the Blender, what is a CFAO.
Okay.
I always do some very dirty case, you know. It's my cousin, and it's my cousin. In fact, he got some issue in life, as you can see.
Yeah.
So I just tell them that we begin with photography,
Wow.
and now we do some nice render.
It's
And
amazing.
after
eh?
we present the same mouse for a patient, but with you know, something very nicer. Even my cousin, when he sees things like that, he says, okay. And after I will show them that we can do some mock-up. Afterwards, I have printed this mock-up. It's just like here. I will do some nice photography tomorrow, and I use it with silicone. Silicone index, you know, to put it into his mouth. I think I have some photography of the end result. After I explain what we can do with other type of things like individual tray. I have taken some image from the Facebook group that I just saved them. Here, the guy is doing very nice thing. I explain that we begin to work with the mouse guard, and after I show them a small, very quick video of making a mouse guard in 4 minutes. But
Oh wow!
You have to
Wow.
you have to be quite quick.
Fast.
Yes.
That's
You know, I work really fast.
wow.
I think it's like I think I have, you know, accelerated like 3 to 4 times.
Yeah.
You know, I'm making it while speaking. So I think that if you are really, really, you know, like a Chinese guy doing only this thing all day long, I think you can do it. It's feasible.
That's funny.
So I
That's
just
good.
explained this type of thing. I will try to incorporate other slides, but I don't know if I have to make it really more. You know, these are industrial guys, and I don't know if there will be, you know, very. I have to obtain their attention, you know, making some nice image, nice video. And after, I think I will just explain them what we are doing and why it is the best thing to do. But you know, I really honestly don't know why an industrial guy want to make mouse guard for sportsmen. But if he can help, okay.
Cool. Good. Thanks for sharing that with us. Hey, thank you so much.
That's my homework.
Anyway, it's time for me to have some coffee and time for you guys to go to bed and sleep and forget about Blender for the night.